There once was an 8-year-old girl. This 8-year-old girl saw the world as a peaceful place, a happy place, a place that God was always around in and felt in. She didn't see the world as truly evil as it was until that day. How was she supposed to know her cousin would sexually assault her? Because the answer was unclear, she kept quiet and tried to forget. It worked pretty well until the following year when he did it again, and then again the following year. These events caused her to lose her faith in God. The way that she saw it was, how can a God who says that he loves his children allow somebody to get so hurt? Instead of searching for God, she searched out things that the world told her would satisfy. She searched out media outlets, the opinion of men, blades, starvation, and eventually death itself. Not being able to get a hug from her family members or get a peaceful night of sleep just tore her apart. She saw no worth, no point of living, and when she was about to take her own life, a voice came in her head that said, "I'm not done with you yet. You still have more to live for." 2 years went by, and she just dug deeper into her temporary satisfaction. Counselors and friends who said that they would be there for her but weren't just tore her apart. But God, who is faithful, met her at her breaking point, and she became a Christian. But even though this occurred, life was still not simple for her. Her junior year came, and she met a man online who told her all of the right things. And after a month and a half of being assaulted by him, police were called. But even though this occurred, nothing was done for her. The man was not caught. The following semester, her cousin's boyfriend assaulted and harassed her. Again, the man was not caught, and she still felt the pain. But there was an ounce of her that felt hope and peace, because she realized that what she needed, only God could give. This girl in the story is me. I am a survivor. And what I've learned is that hope and justice can only be found in God. Mankind can never fully bring true hope and justice. A few terms, let me define them for you. Sexual assault can identify any kind of sexual touching against a person's will. However, for the sake of this speech, sexual assault can identify any kind of sexual crime against a person's will. Those can include sexual assault, rape, which is full sexual intercourse against a person's will, and sexual harassment, which is any time somebody displays a desire to do something to someone sexually or asks for pictures or wants to receive pictures. Even stalking can conclude in this. And all of these are part of a major issue in our society today. Out of all the crimes reported, sexual assault is on the top of the list. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys have been or will be assaulted in their lifetime, according to the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. Out of these, 8 out of 10 of them know the person. This could be a family, a friend, a coworker, or a partner. Rachel I, a detective with the Sexual Crimes Unit of Denver. So there's 11 detectives on the unit, and each one of them will get at least 1 case per day. So if we took that number and multiplied it by how many days there are in a week, that is 77 cases per day, or per week, and that is just in Denver County. According to Michelle, a sexual assault nurse examiner, also known as a SANE nurse, Denver Health has received 5 calls within a 24-hour time period before. Why is it that the numbers are so high and so little is being done about it? At the beginning of this year, I wanted to unpack this question and figure out how we can heal in a world that is so broken, and why this problem is occurring even more rapidly as time goes on. I wanted to dig deep into the ugliest and darkest parts of our society to find these answers. And what I figured out is our biggest flaw is between culture and conversation, ignorance and empathy. If we take a step back and look at how our governmental system should be, in a perfect world, what I believe the people who created it intended it to be. When a person gets assaulted, they call a victim advocate and a police officer. That police officer shows with a victim advocate at their side, and that victim advocate's job is to talk to them, make them feel comfortable, help them talk to a police officer, because it's not an easy task. After they're done with the conversation, the victim advocate will offer counselors and compensation for any medical expenses, and essentially read them their victim rights. At the end of that conversation, the police officer will escort the victim to the hospital, where they will be treated with dignity and given back the sense of control that they lost to get an assault kit done. At the end of the collecting of evidence, the detective will look over the evidence, will talk to suspects, witnesses, and the victim to try to build a case. Once they feel like they've built a pretty good case, they'll bring it to somebody called a DA, which is a district attorney. That district attorney will look over all of the evidence. If they think that they have enough to convict, then the case will go to court. If they don't, then the case is closed. If the case does go to court, then a prosecutor and a defense attorney will look over all the evidence, everything that was brought to them, and try to come up with points to why the defendant is guilty or not guilty. Prosecutor for the victim, defense attorney for the defendant. At the end of all of their points, the prosecutor or the jury will then put in their vote. If they find the defendant not guilty, the case is again closed. If they find the defendant guilty, the prosecutor will then make advice and suggestions to the judge, who will then make a decision whether they go to jail or get community service. However, our governmental system is a flawed system that inhibits the proper authorities to do their job. In Colorado, there's this law, and I'm summarizing it a little bit, that if you're at age 17, you're considered at the age of consent. That means if you're not forcibly held down, explicitly say no, or drugged or drunk, then you can have sex with anybody within a 10-year age gap with you. Because of this law, I was unable to get justice last year. For the December case, I was told because I was not held down, explicitly said no, drugged or drunk, and because it was only touching, he couldn't be charged. The man last year was 26, and I was 17. The man in December, he was 46. I was 17. What these laws don't comprehend is this idea that consent is not necessarily through a willingness to go with a person or through explicit words. Michelle tells her patients, sometimes we don't fight, sometimes we freeze. And that's exactly what I have done. I don't fight, I freeze. So should somebody in my position not get justice simply because we had a reaction in a way we couldn't control? When it comes to laws, it's all about how it's written. The law that I previously mentioned was written in mind of those who practice arranged marriages within a religious basis. Even more than that, we talk about if a case will even go to court, which according to Michelle is less than 10%. And out of that 10%, 6% will ever see repercussions. Now, this isn't taken from an exact study, but it comes from somebody who's worked in this field, and the numbers are shocking. Now, out of all of the assaults that happen on a yearly basis, 37% are reported to police. That means 63% nobody knows about. What happens to the perpetrators? They go free. They harm other people. Even more than that, we talk about, let's say a case does go to court. The defendant has the right to face their accuser, which is fair. I don't think anybody can argue that that's not fair. But the problem with it is the victim's going to be put on the stand. Now, why is this a problem? Well, the defense attorney is going to drill them with questions. Was your skirt too short? Were you flirting with my client? How many drinks did you have? If you didn't want to have sex, why didn't you just say no? They'll even bring up things that the victim's done in their past. Have you ever had a DUI? Have you ever accused somebody else of this? And all of this is used to make the person seem not credible, to make the jury think that they must be lying. However, the suspect doesn't have to be put on stand. Rachel Ide put it like this. If a person assaults a woman in Boulder, and it goes to court and they find him not guilty, then 5 years later he goes to Denver and assaults another woman, that prosecutor cannot use the Boulder case to prosecute him in the Denver case. It's considered prejudice against the suspect. They believe that the jury will hear that and immediately assume that he's guilty. Now, don't get me wrong, our justice system is a great system. The men and women who dedicate their lives to their jobs did this to make the world a better place, a safer place. But I also believe that the people who dedicated their lives to this have become so detached because they've seen this so much. I experienced this last year. Last year, when I first talked to the police officers, they treated me with compassion and love. But when I met the detective, it was a completely different attitude. It was like I deserved it in some way. Or I was just mad at my parents, so I rebelled against them, and when they found out, I kind of played victim. She never tried the case to what it fully deserved. To her, I was another sheet of paper, another number. She even texted my family with the results from the DA, saying that the case was closed. When I went to the hospital to get an assault kit done, I was not given food and water for 2 hours. They never told me that they didn't offer an assault kit, so I was wasting my time. They told me my parents didn't want to see me, and they told my parents I didn't want to see them. After some significant events, I was signed into police custody and sent to Denver Health. We arrived at Swedish ER at 4 in the afternoon and did not leave Denver Health until 4 in the morning. For the December case, I was not offered a victim advocate. Actually, in both cases, I was never offered a victim advocate. The December case, I finally learned my victim rights and had to fight with them to get me a victim advocate. The detective promised he would put all of his effort into this case and that he would not be like the previous detective. But he barely tried to call my cousin's boyfriend. And when push came to shove, he even lied to us and said that he had moved back in with my cousin, which made me cut ties with family members and made me scared for my life. Through these situations, I had to find my own protection. I had to find my own truth. And I eventually lost so much hope in our governmental system, I took the attitude, if something happens to me again, why would I call police? They're not going to do anything. Are they the only ones that become detached? I don't think so. I think society has. We've accepted this idea that sex should be a concept integrated in every single person's life. Places like Hong Kong and France that were once deemed as places where trafficking was prominent, now our own backyard is popular for sex trafficking. We don't want to talk about this in schools or anywhere for that matter because it might offend somebody or make somebody feel uncomfortable. By doing that, all we're doing is putting a Band-Aid on a problem that is getting worse by the hour. It's very rare to meet somebody who's innocent about sex. Where did we get to this point where innocence is considered weakness? Our governmental system is flawed, but so is society itself. Justice can never fully be found on earth because we don't even know what justice is. We don't know what hope is. We become so detached we don't even know what's truth anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, mankind has good intentions. We do good things. But if we solely put our hope and justice in mankind, we're going to fail every single time. Through the past 10 years, I've seen God work in my life. Mostly in the past year, though. He saved my life by sending a godly organization into my life called Healing Hearts. I was so petrified last year to walk out of my house. I was so petrified to come to school because there were rumors about me everywhere, and I was afraid that because he knew where I went to school, that he would find me. But Healing Hearts gave me my voice back. They gave me my confidence back, and I would not be here today if it was not for Healing Hearts. And it is not because they're a perfect organization, but it's because God works through them and through the leaders. I know God has been with me because I've seen him. When all of us went on the senior retreat, we were dropped off in the middle of nowhere for 8 hours. And I have to say that really freaked me out because I hate being alone. But I learned so much about myself and about God. We had a comfort item, some snacks, a water bottle, and a journal. I had this weird feeling, it was kind of hard to explain, but it was almost like I wasn't even on earth. It was like God was my world. I cried, I screamed, I threw sticks, and I wrote. And I wrote in my journal this: I hold so many secrets. Nobody knows the men I've talked to, what they've said to me, the nights that I would cry myself to sleep at night. And I want to tell somebody, but I feel like if I told somebody, they would run and hide. But what I've learned is that God never did. God died for me on the cross. He felt my pain, and he forgave me for all of my sins. But what he's also taught me is he died and forgave the sins of every single man who has hurt me. And so I need to do the same. I feel like he's also used my story. Not because I'm special or anything, I'm just like everybody else. But because what the enemy used to destroy me, God used to grow me, to change me, and to help other people. All he's doing is using his story for his glory. I haven't just seen this in this. I've seen this with the lives of those that I served for my capstone. I had men and women who dedicated their lives to their jobs, who wrote back to me that the letters my classmates wrote to them reminded them of why they do what they do. Reminded them that they shouldn't be detached, and that these are real people that they're helping. I heard from the women that I wrote letters to in strip clubs that my letters brought a smile to their face and encouraged them. Women that the world pushes aside, but God cares about. Again, I'm not special. I'm just like everybody else. But it was God's words. I have seen God work in my life like wonders. And what I've realized through this year is that this is my love. This is my passion. This is what my capstone was all about. Where is God? Where is hope and justice? How can it ever be obtained? And how can we heal in a world that is so broken and so lost without God? I will encourage you in this. When somebody says that they've been assaulted, don't just automatically assume that they're lying. Instead, step into their story. Figure out where they're coming from. Pray for victims so that they will find healing and redemption. Pray for the men and women who dedicate their lives to their jobs, that they will not become detached, and that they'll see every single person as somebody that matters, that has a story, that deserves justice. Pray for those that took something that was not theirs to take, that they will find hope and redemption in Jesus Christ. Spread the word to everybody you know, no matter how uncomfortable it is. This problem needs to end. God is justice. God is hope. Let's not forget that those are just other names for him. We've looked in the wrong places for these things. Let us now look and put our hope in Jesus Christ.